Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ahlan wa sahlan wa marhaban bikum, and welcome to Islamic Finance here on Tuesday Talk or Evening Talk, right here with your host Lukman Skink. And right now we are continuing with our theme of National Savings Month. That is July, and if you don't know about it, now you know. July is National Savings Month, and we want to highlight the importance of saving and budgeting through the many channels that are available. And of course, one of them is the Al Baraka Bank, and they are going to join us this evening to discuss how they have actually looked at the National Savings Month. Of course, we all know that banks are synonymous with saving, and that's what you do at a bank. You save your money at the bank. But Al Baraka Bank, regional sales manager at Al Baraka Bank, Azhar Mia, he is my guest on the issue, and he joins me now. Azhar, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Malana, how are you today?
I'm very well. Jazakallah khair for joining us this evening.
Sure, not a problem.
Absolute pleasure to have you. Now, Azhar, we're talking about the July being National Savings Month, and in terms of how it came about, uh, and I mean, the initiative started in 2001 by the South African Savings Institute in 2001, and it was there to create awareness. But tell us about how Al Baraka Bank, as a member of the banking association, is also plugging into this particular initiative, and how you have actually taken this campaign and run with it.
So you're quite right. I think if we look back historically at South Africa, we've always had a very low culture of savings. And we've
Mm,
always tried to get the numbers up in terms of having people save in the country. And it's obviously important in various aspects. I mean, it provides financial freedom. It gives people a freedom in times of volatility when there's risk, etc. And so in 2001, a non-profit organization, SASSI, which is the South African Saving Institute, they started this initiative to create a culture where they'd name every July National Savings Month. And that's basically what happened since July 2001. And Al Baraka, being a member of the BASA, which is the Banking Association of South Africa, we are a member of that. So we promote the savings program through schools, through media releases and radio interviews. So what we do is, as staff of the bank, we often go out to various schools in the various areas that we find our branches, or in underprivileged areas. And we often speak about savings at a very elementary level with kids, so that it creates a culture and that they can, start saving as well. And that's basically how the bank gets involved, and that's how we actually get involved as well.
mm. Before I get to why you believe schools and not universities should be or companies should be part of your campaign, I would also just like to perhaps, because we're discussing Islamic finance on the show,
Sure.
like non-Muslim people or people that save in banks, they would be motivated by the interest they would earn over time, or compound interest. But
Sure.
Al Baraka does not deal in interest, and of course,
Correct.
how then does Al Baraka then say, look, you should save because your money will grow, but not with interest? I mean, how do you motivate the whole savings culture?
Okay, good question, Malana. I think that's something that often comes up. I think so. The people say, look, I mean, you're an Islamic bank, and if I'm not getting interest, how's my money growing? Quite simply,
Mm,
we work on what we call a profit model.
right.
So if you think about this very simply, the bank acts as a middleman. What we do is we take monies from people who have excess funds, which is known as our depositors, and then
Hmm.
we take that funds and we deploy it out into an area where people have a shortage of funds, where people come and borrow to buy cars or houses, etc., in their businesses. And instead of doing a general conventional banking transaction, with that would be haram. We don't do that. We enter into an Islamic agreement, which is either known as a musharaka or a murabaha agreement, where we either become a partner on an item, or we either outright buy it and then sell it at a profit. When we become a partner, we sell our share at a profit, and that profit is what earned is what's shared with the depositor. And basically, that's how people who save with the bank earn a profit at the end of the day. And that's basically what's motivating the Al Baraka client to save with us. We've got various different types of investment accounts, which basically
Okay.
start from 100 grand, various terms. And similar to what a conventional bank would have, the bank has a product that would almost cater to everyone's need. whether you're investing $100 or whether you've got $1 million like yourself, Milana, to invest, basically caters to everyone.
Azhar, I don't have $1 million to invest or to save. And I know we're going to talk about this as well, but do you not find, Azhar, that people are finding it difficult to put money aside? With the cost of living as high as it is now, don't you think people are coming to you and saying, I wish I'd saved money 5, 10 years ago, because right now I can't save anything. It's difficult to put money aside. There's constant demand on my salary or on my income or on my business revenue. There's hardly any amount to actually say, look, I'm putting this aside.
Sure, I know, Milana, jokes aside, right? I mean, not everyone has $1 million to save, and you're quite right. Especially in the time of COVID, I think we've seen it come across a lot. A lot of people had come to the bank. It was a real eye opener. It was an awakening for people to say, "Look, I wish I'd started saving a long time ago. It would have been able to provide financial stability for me in a time like this. It would have taken me out of a lot of difficulty that I've been through. A lot of people had to go into debt at that time." So you're quite right. I think a lot of people are struggling out there. Inflation is at a record high. If we look at a typical basket of goods, that would have costed us around a 7% increase on a year-on-year basis. I mean, people are predicting that it's possibly around the 13% mark at this point in time. So yes, things are definitely getting more and more expensive. And I think it's important that one thinks about initiatives that one can do to start saving. And I mean, if you don't make saving an item of agenda for you at the end of the month, it will never ever happen. So we encourage individuals to make saving one of the items in their budget. And obviously, that's the first way to start saving. You need to have a budget in place. And obviously,
Right.
that's the first step. You look at how much you're earning, obviously, what expenses you have, and then you calculate how much you'd like to save at the end of the month. And you need to also have a fair amount of discipline attached to it at the end of the day. And I think once you have that in place, it makes it a little bit more easier for one to actually start this process of saving.
Mm,
So you're quite right. We had
absolutely.
seen a lot of people come through and say it is difficult times. It's not easy to save. But I think it's important to start small. It's about inculcating this culture and a habit of saving. I think once you have that habit in place, and let's say it's for $100 a month, you can then start increasing it to 200 or 300 rand, and inshallah we'll all get to that $1 million at the end of the month, or whatever it is, or at the end of the year, or 3 years, whatever it is,
Gee.
that goal that we have. But it's about starting small. It's about creating the culture, and once that habit is inculcated, I think it becomes easier from there.
Mm. And I think this brings me to my question about why schools and not universities or companies or grown-ups. Why does your program for savings target the schools? Is there any particular reason for that?
Definitely, I think there's definitely a
Mm,
targeted approach when looking at the schools. And I think the intention is all about wanting to create a culture of savings from a very young age. And this is why we visit schools, because we basically promote the importance of saving and the culture of saving, and we encourage kids to save at a very young age. And this is where
mm,
we get the engagement from kids and the learners. And we basically have this thing which is known as the savings program that we do at schools, where we teach kids how to do a budget. If they, for example, are getting X amount of pocket money at the end of the month, for them to look at their expenses that they have, and to leave a segment in that budget for savings. And that savings is what we encourage them to then put into an investment account at the bank that would earn them profit, and that profit then can just grow, and that culture is what will be inculcated to broader communities. So there's definitely
mm,
a targeted approach when doing this at schools, because we believe as a bank that if this is inculcated at a young age, it would be something that would be carried on through from generation to generation. And I mean, it's something that would be taken over from there. Obviously, the bank does always
mm,
focus the broader community at large, and that's through various other segments. But this particular initiative is done at a very elementary level, because we feel it's at a grassroots level where we need to
right.
inculcate culture of saving, and that's basically what it's
Mm.
about.
Absolutely. I mean, the fact that youngsters can get involved or at least start saving, it becomes a culture, becomes a second habit, and it will save them from difficulties in the future. And I think I'm sure your explanation is quite on point on that one. Now, when it comes to the products itself, do you have products that specifically target youngsters in terms of we just had Eid, and I'm sure everybody goes, the young ones go around, neighbor to neighbor collecting Eid, and they have quite a bit saved up or collected at the end of the day, so they do get money, and there is a product, I'm sure, from your bank that will encourage them to actually take some of that money and put it aside.
Sure, I think, yeah, definitely. I think um, just on that, I wish I had still gotten ED. Um, uh,
You're a bit too old for that now, as well.
yeah, but on a serious note, I think the bank has definitely got products in place for youngsters, people that
Mhm.
are minors. And I think our product that we have, that we spoke about earlier, is known as a monthly investment plan. We refer to it as an MIP. The reason why this is targeted at the youth is because of the fact that you only need 100 Rand to start saving.
Okay.
My uncle always tells me that he started saving through this account because it made it so much more feasible for him to start saving, because a lot of the institutions out there have a minimum monthly amount of like 500 Rand or 250 or whatever the amount may be. And that might not be accessible to everyone. But if you, I mean,
Mhm.
$100 these days, yes, I know some households may vary, but that's what one should be targeting as a bare minimum to be putting away as a start. So that's basically targeted for the youth. That's one of the products. It's known as a monthly investment plan. It earns profit, um, and you get access to the account on a 1 year basis. But also on the transactional banking side, we have a
Okay.
product known as the iStart account. So before kids actually get their ID and they don't have their own proof of address, they can come with their birth certificates and their mum or dad's proof of residence to the bank, and we can open up a transactional banking account, which is known as an iStart account. And this account is basically an account that a youngster would use throughout their youth. And once they turn 18, we convert that into one of our classic accounts. And it comes with one of the lowest fees. It gives them access to a card, especially in an environment like this here, where kids these days have access to funds. They can go out and swipe, etc. So that's basically what the account does. It teaches them a little bit of independence as well. And as a parent, you can then set limits on there as well, so that you're making sure that you still have a lot of control over it at the end of the day as well. So there's
Mhm.
definitely targeted offering bank for the different segments, the different LSMs, and obviously all of the different life stages that one may be in.
Oh, fantastic. While we were talking to you, you were giving us tips. You were alluding to some tips. You were talking about discipline and overcoming the urge to splurge, and dealing with your instant gratification problem. But give us some tips that even adults can try to implement even in their old age, because everybody needs to save. There'll never be a time where you shouldn't save. Nobody gets to an age where you don't need to save anymore. I believe every single one of us, including the children especially, but every one of us needs to save, isn't it?
Yeah, you're 100% right, Timulana. I think the habit of saving was obviously one that was inculcated to me at a very young age. I wish I'd been as disciplined as my dad when it comes to savings. I feel the generations prior to us had a different culture when it came to savings altogether. But I
Hmm.
mean, the tips that I can give are going to be very basic. I think I don't want to make it complicated. We want to make it easy for people out there. So I think first and foremost, I think you need to have a budget. Yeah, and that's something my dad taught me at a very early age. You need to know exactly how much you earn, and you need to know how much you can spend. It's impossible to be able to spend more than you earn, and that's going to be putting you into debt. And at the end of the day, that's going to create problems for oneself. So once you start off with a budget, note down your income, note down all of your expenses, and then it's important to be able to group your expenses. What are the needs? Separate the needs from the wants, and I think it's at that point when you jotting down the expenses, you think about ways you can get rid of some of the expenses that you have. There's lots of things that one can do. I mean, if you have certain debit orders that go off your account, you can maybe go around looking for a cheaper alternative to whatever debit order that is. If you can get rid of that debit order completely, do that. The first thing is, if you have debt, try and get rid of the debt. Obviously, debt is going to be a trap that's going to be keeping you for long. So don't get trapped by easy credit. That's another thing. I think the other thing is that, I mean, in 2022, the access to credit, even though we have things like the NCA and stuff, is still very easy, if we put it that way. Technology has made it almost very simple for one to apply for credit. You could be sitting at your home, you could pull out your cell phone, then you could apply for a loan or credit card or whatever it may be. So I think don't be trapped by easy credit. Think about your expenditure. Set goals in terms of your saving and what you'd like to do. Um, and for the adults out there, I mean, you spoke about what adults can do to save. It's never um, a time where people shouldn't be saving. For parents, we encourage parents to start saving for your child's future. A
Right.
simple investment would be a unit trust platform that one can use to save for your child's education. We know that those are expenses that are increasing, and I think it's important that one would do that. So those are different things, but at the end of the day, I think Google is your best friend as well. If you're struggling
Mm,
and you need some tips, you're gonna have to Google it and say, look, I'm looking for ideas of where I can, cut costs, because everyone's lifestyle is different, and you can really
mm,
be specific when you're Googling in terms of what you'd like to achieve with your savings culture, and that's basically how you'd go about doing it, I guess.
mm. No, I think it's really important. And the month of July, we figured we reinforce some of those messages because poverty is a problem, and being in want is also a problem, and saving solves both of those problems, I think, considerably. And it's a great initiative, and I think very important that we talk about it. But as if there are people listening and would like your program to come to their school next time around, at least we've got a few days in the month left. How can they contact you and how can they get in touch? And what sort of program would you bring to the school? I mean, you have told us what program we bring to the school, but how can they get in touch?
So I think we invite people to get in touch with the bank. I think please reach
Mhm.
out to the Alberca team. You can reach us via our website, which is www.alberca.co.za. In fact, I encourage all of the listeners and viewers to go out because we've just revamped our website. It's got a full array of what the bank offers there. There's all different sorts of calculators that one can use. It speaks about all of the different savings initiatives that the bank has. So that's one of the initiatives. Or you can call our customer services call center on 0860 that can be an option for you. I'm just going to repeat that number. It's 0860 Or you could visit one of the branches that are closest to you. We've got in Johannesburg, we've got the one in Lodium, the one in Lenasia, the one in Fordsburg, and we've got a regional office in Rosebank, which is in the zone in that mall. And we've obviously got
Mhm.
various branches in the Western Cape and KZN as well. So we'd love it for people to reach out to us, get in contact with us. We'd come through to the school, and the initiative is actually free of charge. We get in touch with
Wow.
the learners. Um, the bank representatives go out, and we basically encourage and promote the culture of savings with everyone at the school. So that's basically how it works.
Mm. Azhar, I'd like to thank you very much for your time and for explaining this important financial literacy. I think it is really about financial literacy. And we certainly hope that more people are going to reach out and come through and at least be inspired by what we've been talking about this evening. Jazakallah khair for your time. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, that's it. I'm grateful that we had the opportunity to chat about this. I think, especially in Savings Month right now, I hope and I pray that everyone finds their way out of debt and difficulty, especially what we've seen throughout the country. A lot of people
Amen.
that go through financial difficulty. And if there's any other financial advice that one may need, even if it's beyond the point of savings, the bank basically offers a full array of financial advice and financial products that can cater to one's need on a Sharia compliant basis, similar to what you would find at a conventional space, but obviously just on a fully Sharia compliant basis. So that's basically it from my side. It's always a pleasure coming onto Salam Media. Hopefully, we'll get
Fantastic.
another opportunity. And at that point, maybe we can talk about the millions in our bank account, Malana.
Well, I'm working on my second million. The first million didn't quite work out, so I'm busy working on my second million.
Okay. Well, you could have invested it
Jazakallah.
all, but it worked out.
I think I should next time. Jazakallah so much for your time,
Okay,
Azhar.
Malana.
I
Okay.
really
Well,
enjoy I really enjoyed talking to you. Thank you so much.
okay. All of the best. Jazakallah, Malana.
All right,
Salam.
Assalamu alaikum. Walaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Azhar Mia, the banker from Al Baraka Bank. In fact, he's a regional let me just give you the full thing. It's a regional, the Gauteng retail manager. That's correct, and talking to us there about how to save for a secure financial future. This is part of our Islamic finance segment, and I think just the basics of saving money, putting away for a rainy day, and not being compulsive with your spending, and always make sure that you are not putting your hands out for other people. Making sure that you're self-sufficient, and I think that is motivation enough. And of course, get the young ones involved from a very young age, and the various products and services that are there involved. They're available at the bank, and of course, Al Baraka bring in those Islamic solutions that are, Sharia compliant. Definitely would encourage you to go onto that website and www.albaraka.co.za, and of course, everything is there. Website has been revamped as well. New products and services available. Jazakallah khair for tuning in. We have come to the end of the program right here on Tuesday nights for myself and Sadiq and the rest of the team right here at Azhar Media. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.